Okay everyone, so I want to talk to you about the analysis of image and font today for task 5. Just remember that you receive 10 marks for this answer and we are going to take 15 minutes to answer this question. What you need to do is you need to identify a cliff feature, colour, layout, image or font for 1 mark, say what the feature is, and then offer an explanation of why the writer has used this feature for a further 4 marks. Then you have to repeat this for your second cliff feature, so you have to pick a different one. For example, you can't write about colour twice, but you can do colour and image. Also, just notice that I've added to your notes an extra prompt. This appeals to people who, because that'll help you to think about the audience of the particular text. So let's look at page 30. Who do you think the audience of this text will be? What is the purpose of this text? Well, it's obviously an advertisement for a wildlife park. So who's the audience going to be? It's going to be families. It's going to be people with an interest in wildlife and conservation. So our first image is going to be the close-up of the squirrel. The writer has used this image to show the potential visitor that this will be an interesting place to visit as they can get close to the animals. That's why he's used a close-up. This encourages the potential visitor to come to the park as it will offer them experiences with wildlife which they may not experience ordinarily. Too many experiences in that sentence. The writer also intends to show the potential visitor a sample of the kind of wildlife which they can experience, making them curious about what else they may find at the park. On page 31 then, you need to choose one of the other 2 images to analyse. So let's look at this image of the deer. Keep the purpose and the audience of the text in mind and focus on some of the important details. Why do you think the author has presented the animals in this natural environment with grass and rocks in the foreground and the background? Why do you think the writer has chosen an image where the animals are walking directly towards the camera and many of them are making eye contact with the camera? Why do you think the author has chosen an image where this very impressive looking deer is standing right in the centre? Focusing on these details and asking yourself how the writer appeals to his audience or achieves his purpose will help you to write a good analysis. Look at the image of the train and again focus on some of the important details. Why do you think the author has made sure that the family, the mother and the child, are visible on the train? Why do you think the author has chosen an image where the train is disappearing off into the forest? How might this appeal to potential visitors? Let's move on to look at page 34. You can see now that we're moving on to look at our final cliff feature, which is font. You need to complete the table on page 33, where you offer the name of the product, a description of the font, and then an analysis of why the writer has chosen this font. How does it make the audience think or feel? And again, ask yourself the question, who does this appeal to? The answer on the Ford logo, for example, suggests that the writer has chosen this font to suggest that this is a long-standing traditional company. This makes the audience feel reassured that they are buying a high-quality product from an established company. Who does this appeal to? We could add a comment that this will appeal to people who are looking for a reliable car. Let's look at some other examples. Remember, it will help if you know what the product is, but more than likely you will not. However, some of these examples will obviously be familiar to you. Again, focus on some of the key details of the font and use this for your analysis. Remember to ask yourself questions. For example, what is the purpose and the audience of the text? Why has the writer of the Cocoa Pops font chosen the colour brown? Why has the writer used this very informal font? How will that appeal to his target audience? Look at the font for the film Saw. Why do you think the writer has made the letters of this particular text look so different? Why has he not chosen a more regular style of lettering? Why has he chosen the colour red? Look at the example for Ferrari. Why do you think the writer has chosen to elongate the top of the letter F in this way? Let's look at this example. I genuinely don't know what this one is for, but again, we can ask ourselves some questions. Why do we think, for example, the writer has used this typewriter font? Why do we think the word killing has been written in red? Why do we think the no more has been written in capitals? Asking these types of questions will help us to provide an analysis of the font choices. Once you've done this, turn to page 32 and complete the page on the newspaper fonts. Remember to add in the additional prompt, "This appeals to people who." Finally, look at the fonts used on pages 35 and 36. I want you to answer these questions and send your answers in to me, please. Begin by thinking about the purpose and the audience. Remember to read the text at the top of the question because this will always give you important information. In this case, we can see that this is a text to promote a theme park. That tells us of the purpose of the text. Who do we think the audience is? Then ask yourself some questions about the font. Why has the author used this very friendly, informal style of font? How might this help the author achieve the purpose? Why is it appropriate for a fun park? Finally, repeat the exercise for your final question on page 36. This is obviously from the front cover of a novel. What is the purpose of this? Well, it's to make people want to pick the book up and read it or buy it. Who is the audience? Perhaps fans of a particular genre. Then focus on some of the details of the font. Why has the author used this very irregular scrolling style of font? Why do you think the author has chosen to present the font as if it is rubbing off the tree bark which it is written off? Do you think the writer might be trying to suggest something about the setting of this particular book? To summarise then, write your answer on page 31 where you're analysing one of the two remaining images on page 30. Then turn to page 34 where you're looking at a selection of fonts and completing the table on page 33. And finally, complete the questions on pages 35 and 36. Remember to add in the prompt, "This appeals to people who." Good luck with it, folks. Thank you.